It's great to have you all in here today. I'm pretty sure everyone in here today has had a glass of water. And if you have, I think you are the right session because we're going to talk about water today. And essentially, we're going to talk about making water count, why it matters for mining, and how beyond just drinking water every day, we can actually make it a source of revenue for the mining industry. So I've got three very esteemed panelists today who are going to help me to really unpack this. So I'll just hand it over to them to introduce themselves, but more importantly, tell you about what they do and their connection with water. Carlos?
Sure. So my name is Carlos Cardinal. I'm Senior Vice President of Basic Industries for Nalco Water Ecolab. I went into the mining industry 33 years ago by accident, and am still here in the mining industry because how passionate I am about what we do and who we do it for. So if anybody knows anything about mining, which we all do, it is a water story. Yeah. So I think that's what the exciting part is.
If there is time, I'll love to hear about this accident.
Yes, absolutely.
Ahmed?
Hello, everyone. This is Ahmed Digna. So a PhD, I did my PhD in metallurgical engineering, United States University of Utah. Most of my work in alloy and composite because I work in CACST in material science engineering department. And I'm interested in mining, and we are doing a lot of stuff in mining for water and, of course, for alloying and composite. Several things in material science division.
Great. Rafaela?
Hello, I'm Rafaela Guedes. Actually, I started in the oil and gas business 18 years ago and gradually started going to the mining. I was mentioning that there are a lot of commonalities. I'm a consultant, a senior consultant, and I work with energy planning, assessing it from the mining perspective and also from the energy perspective.
Thank you. And for myself, I'm Kwesi Ampofo. I am the head of metals and mining at Bloomberg NEF. My background, I'm a mining engineer. I did my PhD in mineral economics a few years ago in Australia, and I'm based in London at the moment. So I think let's start. And Rafaela, I want to start with you. When I read the topic, it was quite an interesting one because it talked about making water a source of revenue. And for me, the only time you can make water a source of revenue is if you met someone on a desert, very thirsty, and you sold water to him or her. But I'm quite curious because I wanted to sort of understand how we can do this. And then my research took me to the carbon market, right? So who would have thought that one of the most polluting compounds in the world would become a source of business, a source of revenue for businesses today? As we speak now, the voluntary carbon markets are being traded where it's becoming a source of revenue for mining companies or allied industries as well. So I just wanted to pick your brain. Do you think that if we want to make water a source of revenue, we will probably be moving into the carbon trading sort of model, or are there other models we could explore?
Actually, I think that is a great parallel. And starting with the water, it seems to not have much value because we always have something near us to drink. But as time goes by, and depending where we're going, we can already see and sense the water scarcity. And as it moves on, I do believe that water will become tradable. It makes sense. It's not there for the moment. I think this is decades to come. But in some time from now, that could be. And then there's this parallel that I tried to think of when we were thinking of this, mentioning this, that the scarcity driver is there at the same thing that happened with the carbon market. So equitable allocation of the water will be something that we will see. Also, the commodification, water usage, it can be measured. Who's using more, who's using less, who's losing water to give more water to the mining or whatever segment, and also a regulatory push. So as time goes by, I think these three things will come along and will probably make it a tradable market. So that's my assessment.
I'm looking forward to this. And then $1 if anybody needs a bottle of water. So I think so. That's it for the regulatory part. And you did. I like how you actually highlighted regulation as being a source of that revenue. So I wanted to sort of take it a step deeper into the operations side of things. And I wanted to start with you, Ahmed. Obviously, if you look at Saudi, we are in probably one of the driest parts of the world. And we've seen that the kingdom has done quite a lot of work because, like you said, mining is a water business. And so to be able to make mining the future pillar of the economy, you need a lot more water in order to process the minerals and do all these things. So I wanted to sort of hear your thoughts on how the kingdom is addressing some of these water use. Because I'm told, through my research, I was told that you're actually using municipal wastes as a source of water supply for some of these mining operations. And I'm quite curious what other countries can learn from that.
Yeah, sure. So let's think about long time ago before even Saudi Arabia exists. So this land is called Arabian land. So when the traveler was crossing this land, they are always avoid to cross Saudi Arabia, so this land, because of the shortage of water and desert. So from that point, Saudi Arabia, they recognize we have shortage in water, so we need to control water management. This is why Saudi Arabia become the global leader in the water controlling management in mining sector, and we are practicing on mining. So I will give some example and we give some tip for the company. So for example, we have Ma'adin. So Ma'adin, they use the sewage water. So of course we treat this water. So after we treat this water, we reuse it in the mining to clean or do flotation. A lot of stuff you guys know about this stuff, so we will not go deep in this scientific word. So we use this recycled water. Then also the city close to the Ma'adin or the mining area, so we use the sewage water and recycle them again and again. So this tip for the companies, you can invest for these cities and you can use the sewage water. Another example we use also the desalination water. So if we look to the north, close to the coast stage, so we have the phosphate. We extract the phosphate from there. So the government itself, we decide to build the desalination water close to the mining. So we use from the desalination. So this is another example. Let's go for another example also. We use something called the water closed loop cycle system. So we always try to use the water from the mining itself. So we are not like using fresh water. And also the government itself encourage that. So if the company use more and more for the recycled water, so they give a lot of stuff and they give credit for that. Another stuff, we live in the AI stuff everywhere is now artificial intelligence. So we use, as you know, guys, this sensor and this equipment, there is a lot of data generated. So we use IoT, Internet of Things, IoT. Then we decide and we manage controlling our plant in mining to become optimized, and we reduce always using fresh water. Another example also in my work in Caxt, we have something called Garage. So Garage is like a startup. We support the startup. So for the last 2 years, more than 200 companies, startup companies, I mean small startup. So we support them and we encourage them to manage the water or extract the mineral stuff from that.
Okay. Well, that's quite a long list, and I hope you're able to take some notes on whether getting it from the sea or even technology or even municipal sewage waste. There's a lot we can learn there. So there are a few things you talked about that I would like to unpack with the panel. And I wanted to start with you, so Carlos. I think Ahmed mentioned technology. Mm-hmm. And I'm quite familiar with the work you do in Ecolab. So I wanted to sort of get your views on what are some of the specific technologies you're working with mining companies all around the world to sort of address this water management challenge?
Yeah, so look, the way I look at technology when we're talking about mining and water really are two things. Ahmed was talking about the AI and digital revolution that's happening in mining. I think a lot of people in the world have an image of mining about us with a pick digging underground and something like that. But if you go to some of the largest mining operations in the world, the control room, for example, might be 2,000 kilometers away. The mining industry has been using technology for decades, right? And when we can harness that technology, for example, there's companies like Stone 3 in South Africa that are using new sensing technology that wasn't available 5 years ago to constantly monitor the operation and measure things that were not measurable 5 and 10 years ago, applying algorithms and AI to have that 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week engineer on duty, right? So that technology is making sure that the plant is operating at the highest efficiency. When you're producing more tons with the same amount of water, by definition, you're reducing the water intensity, right? So that's one piece where the technology comes in, and I think is a critical one. The other more direct, again, talking to, about what Ahmed said, is we can now map the entire water circuit in a concentrator plant, right? And we can create a digital twin of that concentrator plant. And we can look at the flows and the quality of that water at any moment in time. So instead of an engineer having to walk by and say, hey, take a sample, 12 hours later we get the results, what's the quality of this water? If we know the quality of this water right now, maybe that water, instead of blowing it down and sending it to the refuse, we can bring that into another part of the plant. So increasing that recycle within the operation using technology so we reduce the specific consumption, essentially. So we want to get more tons in less water.
If I had a mine, I'll probably hand it over to you to handle my water, because those are very convincing technologies you talked about. But there's something interesting that you mentioned that I want to explore with you, Rafaela. Look, you talked about that engineer going on site, take the water, test it, and now, rather than having the engineer do that, you're going to replace that with the technology, right? And so, for me, the way I look at this is that obviously, if there was a community of, say, 50 data collectors that were relying on these jobs or opportunities, it's potentially at risk, which we've seen happening a lot more in the industry. So, I wanted to sort of, how do companies hoping to sort of implement Ecolab's technologies work with the people to ensure that we don't have a net loss on labor or we don't have a net loss in communities? How can you sort of pair that with these technologies to ensure it becomes a win-win for people and communities?
Yeah. Well, I started saying that I come from the oil business, and it's equally the same and challenging because you need the licensing to operate. So while you're operating within the community, all the time the community will be looking and desiring or not desiring that company within the ecosystem. So it's really, really important to engage the local community, and this engagement happens through different forms. So promoting equitable water access. This is something important. We see examples of that all over the world, and I think we had a panel here. There were people from BHP, I'm not sure, but they were mentioning, and we can have other examples where if the mining operation is happening, if they are doing desalination, if they are doing treatment, so they also offer this water for these poor local communities that are around. Transparency and reporting, so that guarantee that the water that's being used is being delivered to the ecosystem in the correct manner. This is also something important. Job creation and training, so the people that are working within the community have access to also technologies and can be employed within the ecosystem. Minimizing the water waste, so there are education and awareness. Then the community education in general. So these are all forms that we should be using when tackling water that guarantee that the community is really embedded within the system and in the operational system.
Yeah, I think so. For me, the key thing I've just taken from these two conversations is that both implementation of cutting-edge technologies is not mutually exclusive when it comes to taking the communities along. And there are strategies you can ensure that mining companies are adopting cutting edge technologies, but at the same time ensuring that it's inclusive within the communities as well. So there's something interesting. As Ahmed was also talking, I realized that the first place, which is the stat I think Carlos, you and I shared a few days ago, is that it turns out the tailings dam, as you might have told me, is the source of is the biggest source of water loss in a mine. Okay, and over the last 6 days or 4 days since we spoke, I've been thinking, how can we avoid that?
Yeah. So, you know, it's amazing how much water we use to do one thing, and that's take the spent ore and get rid of it. Put it in a place, you know, far away, right, from the plant or the refinery. And we do that a lot of times with water. And the problem is, the limiting factor is we have to use a lot of water so that these pipes don't plug. So when I think about tailings and reducing the water report...
Maybe let's explain the whole slurry concept.
Yeah, so, you know, when we're done processing and extracting that mineral that we want, we're going to combine what's left with a gracious amount of water so that we can pump it to what we call an impoundment, a valley fill, et cetera. And that's where the ore, honestly, is going to lie for decades, if not millennia, right? But we're using water to do that. So we have two options. The first option is, let's reduce the amount of water that's going out there. The way we do that is we have, between modern chemistry, modern equipment, modern monitoring, we can lower the amount of water that's used, essentially changing the rheology. How flowable is this mix? So now we're cutting, let's say, the water by 20 or 30% that's going out there. So you're not even dealing with it at the tailings pond. The second thing is once it gets to the tailing pond, a lot of this water is mechanically interlocked with the medium, right? So it's locked in there physically. And what we can do is we can use chemistry to what we call rapidly dewater. Yep. So we add some chemistry, we release that water immediately, and now we can take that water and instead of it being stuck in the impoundment, and evaporating, because that's where the water goes. It sits in the impoundment, it evaporates, and we've lost it. Now we recover that water, and we bring it back to the plant, and that displaces well water, lake water, river water.
Yeah. And I think if you ever get the privilege to go to a mine site, do visit the tailings. So the name tailings, I believe, came about as is the tail end of the whole process. That is where the unwanted materials go to die forever. And we've actually seen incidents happen in Brazil where, unfortunately, the water was not managed properly. So when it rained, additional water get into the tailings, and it breaches their barrier. And the unintended consequences is we lose life in the community. So it's a very important point you make, which sort of leads me to my next point. When we get tailings wrong, or water management in tailings wrong, people die. Communities get lost. Reputation of mining companies get damaged. Governments get into trouble. So then let's talk about sustainability, right? The 21st century mining company needs to wear two big hats, right? You need to wear one hat where you make shareholders happy. You need to make them money in order for them to also make you happy by giving you capital to work with. But at the same time, you also need to make your community within which you operate happy, to ensure that they give you the social license to mine. And especially at this time where capital is hard, prices are low, margins are squeezed, companies are not making as much profit as they used to, so they are cutting back on communities and all that, right? So my question to you, if we pick this from the lens of water, how can we use water as a tool to improve the sustainability of these mines, but more importantly, also make them equally competitive as operations? And I don't know, Ahmed, if you have any views on that, on sustainability, water, and competitiveness.
So as I said before, for the sustainability, when we use the recycled water and we do it like a closed loop system, that is like give a high impact to the environment. As we know, all these leaching process, flotation, it's full by chemical stuff, as Carlos mentioned. And so what we are trying always to do, like to reduce that by the closed loop. And also for the sustainability, we can build some, here in Saudi also, we have some like harvesting water, rainwater, close to the mining sector. So what we are doing, we take, even the rain is not much in Saudi. But
yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Just for context, how often does it rain here?
Yeah, but not even it's not much, but still we are using it. So this all of this is, give impact to the sustainability.
Yeah. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So circularity, obviously, nothing goes waste. It's a way to manage that sustainability using water. I don't know if you have any point on that.
Yeah, I have some. There are the basic ones that we all companies must use, which is the efficiency, so water efficiency, so that we reduce the costs of that, especially in areas where we have scarcity. Improve the productivity from where we are producing, but also trying to get competitive advantage by differentiating your way of producing. So all mining companies that are doing this in a more sustainable or more socially friendly way, providing benefits to the community. All of this is taken into account to differentiate products, and I think that this will be more and more valuable over time.
Yeah, and I believe in that continuous value occurring as well, both for the company and for the communities as well. Carlos?
Yeah, look, I found out that the three of us have something in common besides mining, passion for mining. We all love to hike. I've got a new place to hike in Brazil. We were talking about hiking in Utah, where you did your graduate studies. So a lot of people think that that's a problem, right? We're in the mining industry, we're destroying the planet, but we want to go out and enjoy our nature as well. And I think that the way that we do that is through this, balance, right? And I think the really good news for the industry is that 10 years ago, conservation was a cost. Water circularity was a cost. It was negative ROI. A company had to have the ability to go to their shareholders or privately owned and say, we're going to spend money that we don't need to do the right thing. What we have found in the last few years is with technology and with the cost of water, that now we go to a facility and we map all the opportunities they have for water savings. 5-7 years ago, 10 of 10 were negative ROI. Now, 7 of those 10 are actually a positive ROI, because we're taking water that we spent a lot of money to pump out of the ground, to heat up, and then we cooled it, and then we heated it again, and then we cooled it. Instead of doing all those cycles, let's heat it once and use it as many times as possible. So it is becoming very much a positive impact on the bottom line. So I don't think it's a question of one or the other. Can we have our hiking environment or make money? We can do both.
That's exactly what we should do. Make money whilst we go on hiking.
Yeah.
And look, at the beginning I did promise that if we had time, I'll come back to you with a question of,
Sure.
How did you accidentally stumble into mining? Were you walking and you tripped into a mining school? Or?
Well, so, a lot of times people in mining are multi-generational.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah, true.
Or their community. Now, I grew up in Virginia, which is a heavy coal mining state. But I didn't have any friends that were coal miners. In fact, quite frankly, my dream was to work for Ford and build race cars. Right? So I'm an engineer, physics. But in 1992, when I graduated, there were no jobs in Detroit. And my best friend's father was the HR director for Reynolds Aluminum. And he said, hey, do you want to go interview for a job at a bauxite mine and refinery? I didn't know what that meant. But when they told me how much they were going to pay me compared to my wage as a student, I said, I'll be there Monday. And my thought was, I'm going to pay some bills, and then I'm going to go build race cars. But now, 33 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. And it's because of one reason, and it's the people. This business, the people, whether you are in China, Australia, Brazil, Saudi, You know a miner anywhere in the world, we all have the same DNA.
So I think, Keithan, you should make friends who would recommend you for jobs. I have a similar story too, because I was told what the salary was, and I'm like, I'm doing it. Ahmed, what got you into mining?
So my background is mechanical engineer.
Yeah.
Then I did material science and engineering in Rutgers University in the United States. Then suddenly I feel like I need to combine material and mechanical engineering, because material science is full of polymer and chemical stuff.
Yeah.
Then I said, okay, let's go to metallurgical engineering. So I did my work in metallurgical engineering, and you are there. Metallurgy, you need to extract all these metal, and you need to get all this stuff from rocks. Yeah, you are there in mining.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah.
Rafaela, 18 years in oil.
What came, well, it's different, totally different approach, but I am doing my doctorate degree in energy planning. And while doing that, I really needed to understand how to scale up the energy transition, and started assessing from a Brazilian perspective, supply and demand, and what are the products and the energy we need, and the technologies we will need. And going on that, there's a gap. There's a huge gap on mining and the sustainable mining and all the minerals that we will need to make this possible. So then I started really digging into mining and understanding how can we scale up this production, and at the same time doing this in a sustainable way. So it was a different approach, but that's how I ended up in mining.
So what we have here is a big gap, PhD gap, solving a problem, stumbled into mining, evolution of career from mechanical to material to metallurgical, and then well, the unofficial one and the official one is the people. So before we leave the stage, I just wanted to sort of, let's throw in a crystal ball, right? 2030, 2050, if we were to come back on the stage and talk about water and mining, and you can be imaginative as possible. If we were to come back on this stage with the same lovely audience in the next 30 years, what do you think will be the most important thing we'll talk about between water and mining?
Look, I'll start with that. I believe the energy transition is here to stay. The question is, by region and market, how fast is that going to happen? Unfortunately, you know, the US, where I live, has kind of pumped the brakes on it, right? I mean, you're hearing about the slowing of EV sales and things like that. But there is one thing that is unmistakable, and that is the computing power, AI, digital revolution is happening at warp speed. And so whether the need for minerals is going to come from electric cars or AI and data centers, what we do is critical, and that is happening at a pace so much faster than what, quite frankly, I think the energy transition was going to deliver. When you think about a data center going up, I think it's every 3 days, like a $2 billion investment. I think we're going to look back and say, I hope we look back and say, if we didn't address the water, we would have run out of water before we ran out of data.
Good one. Ahmed?
If we return back again for next year, so what I'm thinking, like, we need to interact more, and we need to take more care about ourselves and the environment. So let's take a look for Industrial 5.0 now. We start to run. So Industrial 4.0, it's more about machinery, and now for Industrial 5.0, it's interact more to the human, so it's machine and human. So what I wish next is, so we need to interact more about our environment and about animal and about our health and our people.
Beautiful, more interaction. Rafaela?
Wow, I don't think there's much to add, and you're so variable, but I tend to agree with what Carlos was saying, and the mining will continue to be, and the energy necessary for all these, for all these processors. We're seeing this in Brazil, Northeast, coming up with a lot of energy needed to put up this computing processment. So definitely will need to be there.
All right, so audience, a round of applause for my panelists and for yourselves as well. Thank you so much.
And for the moderator, that made it fun.
And for the moderator.